Hello there, and welcome to Weird Music on the Glumburger channel. A strange music show looking at different kinds of albums of all sorts of different shapes and sizes, right? So today, a return to the new age music genre for those who didn't really ask for it. So essentially, I've actually procured a bunch of new age album releases that are all just, to me, really odd and bizarre in their own little ways, despite all as just existing as albums that are purely there to be listened to be relaxed to, and nothing else. There's a bunch on cassette and a bunch on CD and things, and I just thought it'd be interesting to dive into these albums because they're just, I don't know, there's something just really odd and peculiar about it, but maybe that's just me. So this one, I actually came across in a very weird little way, and as such, I just thought it'd be very interesting to discuss this one, because it's just very strange how I came across this particular album, but a bit more on that later. So today, I present the album Environments 2, River Bells. This album is on the front, for all intents and purposes, by Environments 2, right? It's not actually the artist name, of course, it's just the name. But new age albums can be a bit confusing like this sometimes. So essentially, this album is actually Environments 2 by Anugama. Who is Anugama? Well, Anugama is the moniker for one Werner Hagen. Some dude who plays the flute and makes a whole bunch of new age music. Sounds familiar, right? Maybe anyway, if you did see that episode. A musician exploring the world of relaxing naturalistic sounds and its combination to droney ethereal music. Pretty normal stuff for a new age musician, right? Anyway, in this very CD that we're actually looking at here, we've got a brief little paragraph about Hagen that it's kind of watery in its description, but it's perhaps just apt in the very context of this album. Being a versatile and experienced musician, Anugama raised his musical language to a high aesthetical level. Western and exotic instruments, the complex spherical sounds of the synthesizer and relaxing natural sounds join harmonically. His inner demand for combining beauty, liveliness and peace in his music grew out of many years of meditative experience. And so, that's the dude. Plays a bunch of instruments, makes a bunch of drony proggy music. Sounds about right, doesn't it? So Environments 2 River Bells is one of, a bunch of albums from Hagen, which was originally released in 1987 by Nightingale Records. And this album just offers two recordings, roughly two 20-minute tracks of serene new age music. Very simple, and it definitely wears itself on its sleeve, of course, with its picture of a stream falling in amongst the rocks. So, as mentioned, I found this album in a kind of weird way. Essentially, when I was looking up for physical copies of the album Environments 2 Tintinnabulation special low frequency version. This album, which of course is where Earth 2 got the special low frequency thing from, as we actually discussed in our very second episode of Weird Music. But anyway, when I was looking up physical copies of the album, which are ridiculously priced here in the UK, browsed eBay, looked up Environments 2, trying to find this album, and instead I found this Environment 2. And on the eBay page, it was seemingly uncredited new age album that just bore the same words of Environments 2. And of course, I thought I'm not going to let an opportunity like this just slip past. And so I bought the very CD that I was browsing there, because I wanted to know what the heck was on this thing. Yeah, 40 minutes of new age music in another esoteric video. What are you going to do? But yeah, let's dive into it all, shall we? So, I'll be honest, especially when it comes to new age music, I don't know where to start with these things. You get the starting track of Singing Water. And for me, like all new age music I've experienced so far, it just occurs. It starts off in a fashion of having, always been there, perhaps, if that makes sense. And it does make it difficult to really delve into I feel like its structure in the bones of it, because it just tends to be a lot more abstract in that sense, if that makes sense. That being said, the recording does do a bunch of things here and there. There's mostly the sound of running water constantly occurring, placing us in that space as keyboards just bounce around these ascending and descending melodies as drones swell in the background. And it creates the backdrop for a long-form composition to just slowly unfold, intermittently adding in these rather brief motifs from additional acoustic instruments, from chimes, bells, and the twinkling of notes just momentarily occurring. And I'll be honest, I'm reminded so much of the prog rock genre for some reason, as mentioned slightly earlier. And it's maybe just how the particular synths sound on this album, but I just find it very strange to listen to. But that's the thing with new age music, that usually most of the time it manages to achieve that kind of zen vibe that it wants to offer in the first place. There is that gentle, meditative quality that makes you just want to fall right back into your head of a moment of personal introspection. Maybe, I don't know. But, perhaps, you're also the kind of person who just listens to it all occurring past without giving it much of a second thought, which I think is my general experience of new age music. It once again falls back into that aspect of just being muzak, just rather recurring music than anything else. And for me, especially with this one though, I'm reminded of trips to the spa, where everything is meant to just be soothing and relaxing, and more often than not, there's just weird new age drone music playing at those places, right? Mixing of field recordings, drones, low ends, all sorts really. I recently spent some time in a spa earlier this year. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed all the sort of droney music and just the relaxing vibes. And listening to this does remind me a lot of that. But the main thing is though, what I find weird, it's hard to pin down exactly how to describe it, but it's just that sense of redundancy that I can't put into words. This is something we touched on a little bit in our video for Terry Oldfield. It's just new age music kind of feels a bit redundant because it's just designed to be felt in a sort of muzak way rather than, delved into. However, it's still nice to listen to though. Especially with this one, how it just progresses. It continues to introduce new acoustic elements from time to time, just to stretch out those passages with these little interludes, it feels. And it shows many different motifs occurring amongst the framework of, the same field recordings and arpeggios, And there is as well some rather nice bits where the keyboard, plays these rather lovely descending notes, almost stacking them on top of each other before falling back into these relaxing noodles once more. It's very zen. And that's the whole point, isn't it? But, as fun as these little parts are, I just don't know what else to say about it. The basic agenda of the music is incredibly easy for me to understand. It's music to just enjoy, that is playing, create that nice relaxing environment for you and nothing more. And of course it ties into that very name, of environments too here, blurring of wherever it is you are and the environment that the music conjures up. In this case, it's just conjuring up images of a running stream in the middle of the forest. It's a nice vibe, and in a sort of meditative sense, it's a nice place to hang out at for 20 minutes. But beyond that, what else does this music do? Not a lot else. Let's discuss the next track, though. So, the next track, Inside. More running water to open the track, maybe a bit of a faster flowing river as you get a twinkling of synths and keyboards creating that new age vibe once again. And from its immediate start, it feels very much like a continuation of the previous track, once again occupying a river in the forest. And it doesn't feel like it's doing anything all that different for the most part, except maybe playing longer instances of ascending and descending notes. Similar motif to the previous track, played a little bit differently on this composition in just slight ways, but nothing much else. Just a slightly slower version of it all. I certainly think it's nice, but yeah, this track comes across as a bit more of a subtle version of the opening track. A lot more of these peculiar instrumental flourishes, they seem to be absent this time round, and it gives more emphasis on these long-form droning notes, which feels a lot more ambient and a lot less prog. But I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It certainly does create something a little bit different for us in terms of these two compositions, but only slightly. And thus I can't help but feel a little bit odd about it though. Something really doesn't make that much sense in regards to it, but maybe this is because I'm trying to delve into a form of music here that doesn't really necessitate diving into. The amount of thought I think that you really need to put into listening to music like this is actually not all that much. And that's not really a bad thing in any way or form, it's just different. And maybe that's why I find it weird for the most part, because, maybe reviewing stuff like this in the first place is just redundant. Maybe anyway. Like, the point of reviewing music is to dive into it and to get into the meat of it and understand it all and really, pay attention to what you're listening to and what makes you feel. But with something like this, with New Age music, it's not really designed to be dived into. You're just meant to go on the vibes of it all, and that is it. That's kind of weird to me. And so, one final point before we close off this review. The whole presentation of this physical release is one that kind of overindulges in these rather shamanistic and meditation notions that I feel, if that makes any sense. As a result, this CD has actually been presented to us with a short story in the liner notes. A little tale for further contemplation into exactly what this album is trying to present to us. And so, because we have time, just to read it quickly. The Indian Bird. A tradesman had caged an Indian bird. When he had to leave for India on business, he asked his bird if it desired a present from its homeland. The bird asked for its freedom, and as the tradesman refused this, the bird asked him to go to the Indian woods and tell the wild birds about its imprisonment. The tradesman fulfilled his wish. In India, he went to the woods and proclaimed the story of his own bird. When he had finished, a wild bird of the same species as his own fell dead off a tree. The tradesman felt guilty, as he thought this dead bird must have been related to his own. When he returned home, he told his bird about the sad incident. He had hardly finished when his own bird fell dead to the bottom of its cage. The tradesman, deeply shocked, and thought his sad news had killed the bird. Sorrowfully, he took the bird and put it on the windowsill. In a jiffy, however, the bird was full of life again and escaped to the next tree. Free again, it shouted to the tradesman. What you considered a sad message really was a hidden message for me, and flew away. Hidden messages could not easily be recognised. So, slightly obtuse story, I feel. To be fair, it kind of reminds me of a Just So story, a small little stories with small twists of some sorts at the end kind of thing that you just read as children. I don't know how seriously I can take this story though. It kind of feels a bit shoehorned into this whole album experience without it really adding much actual context or understanding, but maybe that's just a me thing. But I do think it's a little bit ironic though, because my just not getting of it is kind of ironic, because the story does allude to hidden messages that are embedded within this album, which, it could be in the form of the music itself, or it could maybe even be something that's literally written down in the liner notes, as much of this is written in German. I don't understand German, I can't read German, so maybe there's something hidden in there, I have no idea. I can't recognise the hidden messages of what I'm saying. So I think it's kind of amusing. Maybe it's a little bit of a joke being played on the account, but I could just be overthinking it anyway. But, I just think it's interesting. But regardless, I think what it is, though, it's one of those little things where, because this music's meant to be experienced in a sort of meditative way, you sit down, you listen to the album, you read the story, and you let it kind of conjure up some of the pictures and paintings of this very album experience for you. And it's just something of extra consideration and contemplation for you. you know, and I think it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit humorous and stuff, but it's not a story I can take all that seriously. I don't know. You know, I don't think I get it, to be fair, but maybe that's the point then. Maybe I'm trying to read too much into this when really I should just be sitting back. I should just be relaxing, taking it all in the stare, which is perhaps the point of New Age music itself, right? I think so, anyway. So yeah, I think with that, we should come to the end of our episode of Weird Music there. I just wanted to take some time to discuss this weird little oddity I found when I wasn't meaning to. Sometimes you find yourself listening to something you probably never otherwise would have listened to. But yeah, taking the initiative to find out what's on here, it results in videos like this one where we listen to music like this in this particular context instead of sitting back, relaxing and letting the music do what it's supposed to do in the first place, which is to relax you and put you in an environment of serenity, if that's what you're looking for. So, you know, apologies to Anugama here, because, you know, I'm not listening to this properly, am I? But it's only because in context of this video, which is a weird thing to think about, it's kind of scrambling my brain a bit. But I just thought it was interesting. Just interesting on some level, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Weird Music. Another odd one, but I didn't want to pass up the chance to talk about something that was a little bit of an oddity. I don't know if it was worth purchasing, but it was nice to find accidentally. So yeah, I wish you all the very best. Hope you take care, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.